Good afternoon, everyone. I am Michael Steelman, Director of Alumni Career Management and Professional Networks at William & Mary, and I'm truly delighted to welcome you to this afternoon's webinar, Energy Leadership, the Key to Uncovering Your Full Potential. Today's webinar is part of the William & Mary's inaugural Professionals Week and is made possible by the support of the William & Mary Alumni Association and its One Tribe, One Network initiatives, providing relevant career and professional programming for all alumni in all career stages. Today's presentation is being recorded, and we will notify registrants once the recording is available online at wmalumni.com. Questions are welcome, and our presenter will answer as many questions as time will allow. If you just roll over the Zoom window, you should see a Q&A button icon on the bottom. Please click that and type in your question in that box. During the webinar, I will monitor the questions and present them at the end of her presentation. Additionally, Terry may ask a few short answer questions throughout her presentation, and I encourage you to use the chat icon. When you roll over the Zoom window, you'll see a chat icon appear to respond to our questions. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest presenter today. Terry McDougall is president of Terry B. McDougall Coaching. She is an executive and leadership coach who works with mid to senior corporate professionals to develop the skills and mindset to lead happier and more productive careers. Prior to becoming a certified professional coach and beginning her practice in 2017, she worked for more than 20 years as a marketing leader in financial services. Terry graduated from William & Mary in 1986 with a BA in economics and earned an MBA from the University of Maryland. Terry lives in the suburbs of Chicago with her husband and 3 children. You can learn more about Terry on her website at www.terrybmcdougall.com. We are truly delighted to have Terry join us this afternoon as on our fourth day of William & Mary Professionals Week to share her advice and guidance here with alumni of William & Mary community. Thank you so much, Terry.
Thanks, Michael. I really appreciate that introduction, and welcome everybody. I am here to talk about a topic that I am really excited to share because it's really about how to be happier and have more energy in your life and career. So before I get into the meat of this, I'd just like to talk about the type of coaching that I do. So I'm a core energy coach. That means I'm trained in a process that helps people identify and remove blocks to their full potential. The focus of my coaching is helping individuals emotionally connect with their inner purpose and passion, and connect that with their outer goals and strategies so that they achieve sustainable results. My objective for the presentation today is that by the end, you'll understand the types of energy, you'll recognize them in yourself and others, and be able to consciously shift your energy by recognizing and evolving negative thoughts to more positive thoughts. And hopefully that will mean that you are the cause of your life and not at the effect of your life. So let's see. The energy leadership model was developed by Bruce D. Schneider, who is the founder of the coaching school that I went to, IPEC Coaching. He's got a PhD in psychology, and he's also a licensed psychotherapist. This model was based on the 7 chakras that come from ancient Indian spiritual practices, and he has interwoven and overlain modern psychotherapy modalities. It really identifies the roots of unhelpful patterns that may block positive energy and change. And through some research that was done by IPEC, they found that 90% of participants experienced increases in positive energy and satisfaction in their life and careers after they went through this type of coaching. So without further ado, I'll jump into a little survey question to ask you here at the beginning of the presentation. How much do you believe that mindset contributes to your success? If you wouldn't mind just going ahead and filling this out, I'd like to see what people think. Are you able to see the results, Michael?
Yes, it looks like 83% say significantly and 13% say quite a bit, and we have 4% say it's the only thing that truly matters, and the rest is 0%. So those are the top top three is, so it definitely matters.
Okay, yeah, and that's exactly what I would say. But it really is up to how we think about what happens in our lives. So it's all about the energy, folks. Energy is defined as the strength and vitality to sustain activity. And when we have more energy, we have more life. And when we feel more energetic and feel more vital and lively, we have more success in our lives. I'm going to tell you a little story, like for you to just stop for a second and envision yourself in these stories. So I'm going to talk about 2 mornings. The first morning, you wake up, you roll over, and you look at the clock, and you realize that you have overslept your alarm by 30 minutes. So just think about what that feels like, that shot of adrenaline when you pop up out of bed and you run into the bathroom to hurry up and get ready, stub your toe on the way to the restroom, get in there and realize that, darn it, you've got a meeting with the boss that morning and you're not even going to have time for a shower. You've got to rush to get to work on time. Go in the closet, grab a pair of pants, put it on, and the button pops off. After you pin it, you run to the kitchen hoping to get a cup of coffee, and as you're pouring it, it spills. When you go out the door, as soon as you walk out, it's raining, you get in the car, and immediately encounter a traffic jam. I mean, who hasn't had a day like that where it just seemed like one bad thing followed another and nothing seemed to go right? I think we've all had days like that. And let's contrast that with another day. And on this morning, you wake up, and before you even open your eyes, you have kind of the vestiges of a vague dream that was really pleasant still in your mind. And you hear birds chirping outside the window. And you kind of blearily roll over and look at the clock and realize that even though you feel completely rested, but it's about 30 minutes before you even have to get up. But you decide to get up anyway because you feel great. Because of that, you do something that you don't normally have time to, maybe do some journaling or meditate or take a longer hot shower. When you get out of the shower and go into the closet, you find that your favorite outfit is back from the cleaners. You put it on and you feel confident. You look great. You get outside, it's a beautiful sunny day. When you get in the car to drive to work, you hit all green lights. So who would rather have more of the second kind of days? Definitely me. And, on those days, it seems like because it starts out good, your energy's high, and just good things seem to follow. So there's 2 different types of energy, and those 2 stories illustrated the 2 different types of energy. The first type of energy is catabolic energy, and if there's any chemistry majors on the webinar, you probably know exactly what this means. It's a type of energy that is draining, it's destructive. At the cellular level, it actually breaks down the cell. We typically will experience this kind of energy when we're under stress and when there's a fight or flight type situation. Our bodies actually release cortisol and adrenaline, and though this type of energy is necessary for survival, it's not healthy if we stay in this type of energy level for a long time. And I'm going to kind of go back to, biologically where humans came from back in prehistoric days. If there was a saber-toothed tiger that was out there and was chasing a caveman, they'd get that jolt of adrenaline and they'd run and, run into a cave to hide. And they needed that adrenaline to be able to do that. Or if they encountered a predator, they might have to fight it off. And you needed that kind of, that energy to be able to do that. But nowadays, we don't really encounter saber-toothed tigers. And what happens is that we experience different types of stress, maybe worry or, traffic jams or things that are more consistent. And so a lot of times we'll just spend a lot of time in this catabolic state, and it can burn us out. It can cause a lot of health problems. So the other type of energy, and the one that was illustrated by that second story, is anabolic energy. And this is a constructive, building type of energy. It's healing. When we're in an anabolic state, hormones such as testosterone, which actually build us back up, are released into our system. In this type of energy state, we experience growth, creativity, possibilities, connection, and we seem more easily able to attract success in this type of energy. So I'm going to go through the model of the 7 levels of energy leadership, and there's 2 levels that really are more in the catabolic range. There's 4 levels that are in the anabolic range, and then there's 1 that's sort of on the borderline. And as I'm going through them, what I would like to suggest, just to make this a little bit more interactive, is that as I describe them, if you wouldn't mind typing into the chat when what are some of the situations that you might actually experience each one of these levels. And I also want to say that we all experience all 7 levels of energy, and there's nothing wrong with them. In fact, the catabolic levels are necessary for us, because sometimes we do run into situations where we need that quick jolt of adrenaline. But as I was saying before, it's just when we're stuck in that and we can't consciously move out of it that it gets to be problematic. So let's see here. One other thing is that energy attracts like energy. So when I was going through those 2 examples of the Tale of Two Mornings, the reason why bad things seem to follow bad things is that once we're sort of in that energetic state where it's sort of negative, we actually sort of attract other negative things to come into our lives. And the same can be said that when we're in a positive state. And I think probably everybody, or hopefully you've experienced times when you were in the flow that it just seemed like nothing could go wrong. And that's because you were probably resonating at a very high level of anabolic energy. And the more that we can do this consciously in our lives, the happier and the more satisfying our lives will be. So I'm going to jump into the different levels. So the first energy level is that of the victim. And at this level, people experience avoidance and fear, sadness and apathy, failure and suffering, regret and numbness. And an example would be, a lot of times if you're grieving or you've had a disappointment, you may feel this way. There are advantages and disadvantages to all of the 7 levels of energy, and believe it or not, even the victim level. The advantages of this level are that we can protect ourselves. Maybe we can get attention. Maybe we need help to get out of this, and so people can notice and be sympathetic, and they step in and help us get out of this. We can also avoid responsibility for actions. So the disadvantages may be obvious, but there's little to no engagement in tasks. We can't affect change from this level, and people won't follow us. You really can't lead others at this level because it's just such a low level of energy. So going on to level 2, this is the level of the fighter. And just to remind you, you may be seeing this as the fight or flight. These are the catabolic levels where it's fight or flight. So the fighter, here there may be hate, judgment of ourselves or others. At this level, there's a real black and white binary view of the world. I win and you lose, and there's no other options there. There's a lot of conflict. There's control and punishment, competition, and justification for behavior. The advantages of this level, and especially over level 1, is that you can actually get stuff done. I mean, anger can be a big motivator. And people can get things done with other people as well. They motivate others, but they do so through fear, aggression, and force. So the disadvantages of being at level 2 is that the motivation of others is not sustainable. Eventually, if people are being motivated by fear or force, they're going to leave, or they're going to avoid, or they're going to shut down. So people who are using this level, especially at work or even within their families, they're not going to be able to inspire others, and it really creates a negative environment that others want to get away from. So going into level 3 is, let's see here, sorry. Level 3 is the rationalizer. And this is the level that I mentioned that's sort of on the boundary between catabolic and anabolic energy. At this level, people can actually get things done. They really will, if somebody offends them or they don't like what's going on, rather than judging them or hating them or having conflict like someone would have at a level 2, here they'll forgive them. They'll kind of sweep things under the rug just so that they can keep moving forward towards their goals. They'll play the game. They will use persuasion to try to get people on board with them. And there's a general acceptance of others. There may be even pity, where they say, poor thing, can't get their work done. I guess I'll have to step in and help them. There's definitely a conflict aversion here. But there's kind of like, I'm okay, you're okay. And there's positive optimism with this level. The advantages of a level 3 are that people can get things done without conflict. They block others' negativity. They're able to engage with others, and they're logical and productive. Now, the disadvantages at this level is that while at level 2 there was the I win, you lose, at level 3 there's still I win, but they don't hope they kind of look at other people and say, well, if you win too, that's okay, but I'm not gonna go the extra mile to make sure you win. I'm okay with it. It's not a black and white type thing. They are self-concerning. They do want to make sure that they win first. They'll do their best, but they're not going to go too far. There's not going to be necessarily, they'll kind of give it the old college try, but and the promises come from the head and not the heart. There may not be 100% commitment here. Okay, moving on to level 4, it's the caregiver. And here, people really want to be of service. They're very loyal to others. It's all about helping. If we use that I win, you lose model, or the winning model, here it would be like, you win, don't worry about me. A lot of times people that are experiencing level 4 energy, really put themselves second. It's all about you. It's not about me. Don't worry about me. There's optimism. They believe things are going to work out for the best. And they really want to make the world a better place, and they have faith that that will happen. You see a lot of servant leaders who have a high level of level 4 energy. Now, the advantages of level 4 are that people here take very little personally because they're so focused on others. They care for others. They help others function at their best. The disadvantages are that because they're so focused on others, that they can really get caught up in other people's business. There can be a lot of drama here. That sometimes the boundaries aren't great. They may really want to step over and like pick people up and help them do what they think is right, rather than maybe respecting people's boundaries. And they can also, from a leadership standpoint, be motivated, more motivated about being liked than being productive. You often see people with high levels of the caregiver energy in helping professions like nursing or social work or medicine. So going on to level 5, this is the opportunist. And here people are very curious. They They see opportunities everywhere. They accept others' uniqueness, and there's a lot of self-determination here. People at this level like to live life to the fullest, and they believe that everything works out for the best. And they're continually trying to improve, and they're very future-oriented. People who have a lot of level 4 energy just love ideas, love learning. These are definitely the people that if you give them lemons, they're going to make lemonade. And this is also the level where you'll find people wanting to come up with the win-win situations. And I'd like to just contrast level 5 with level 2. Say if somebody was out driving around and they got lost and they were experiencing level 2 energy, they'd probably get angry and get super frustrated because they were lost. Maybe even judge themselves or judge the person they were with, and maybe say, oh, you caused me to get lost. At level 5, people would say, well, isn't this cool? I'm getting to, experience or explore another area of my town. They're definitely going to look for the silver lining, as opposed to maybe at other levels. And the advantages, and I might have just given this away, that they see opportunities in every challenge. They're super creative. They really don't take things personally. They really are so focused on the idea that they don't really think about things, from a personal standpoint. They're actually not very emotional, and they tend to be inventive. The disadvantages is that because everything is interesting to them and that they see opportunity everywhere, that there might be some paralysis by analysis. People who experience a high level of level 5 energy often are good starters of things. So they'll start things, they're so interested, but they don't finish them. They lose interest. They can be disengaged from their emotions. And this one's very interesting, that because they're so excited by ideas, that their bold ideas can actually feel threatening to others. So somebody who's, I just talked about somebody who's in that kind of level 2 energy might feel threatened by getting lost, whereas somebody who's experiencing level 5 might actually embrace it and just want to drive around and find their way home in a unique way. Okay, let me go on to level 6. So level 6 is the visionary. And, going back to that, the idea of winning, at this level, people would say, we all win or we don't play. It's even beyond win-win. And there's a lot of similarities with, between level 4 and level 6. There's a lot of caring. But at this level, there's no judgment, and there's a real acceptance of others, and really not a need to step in and help fix people. It's more just like a real acceptance. People at this level are serene, and they're wise, they're kind, they're fair, intuitive. There's an acceptance of others. They can be very inspirational, and they believe in equality. Examples of people who show a lot of level 6 energy would be people like Nelson Mandela or Oprah, people that are really looking at how to make things better in a big way, not just necessarily one-on-one. The advantages at this level are that they're very empathetic, and they can connect with other people without judgment, and they're very inspiring to others. The disadvantages are that people might not view them as grounded because they're so accepting of other people. Maybe someone who's resonating at a lower level may not be able to accept that, if someone is, going in and counseling people in prisons because those people in prisons did something terrible. But somebody at a level 6 might say they're human. I'm going to go in, I'm going to show them love. And others may not look at that as valid or might not be able to accept it. People at this level can also be perceived as aloof. They're just kind of on a higher level. And they can also be risk takers, a lot like the level 5, where because they're so accepting, others may view a situation and judge it as wrong, or bad. And people at level 6 are just like, I just accept it. It just is. Okay, and then finally at level 7, this is sort of the pinnacle. This is the level of the creator. And at this level, I talked about the, winning and losing. At this level, people would say there's not even a game, that everything is just pure energy. It just is what it is. And human perception is what gives things meaning. Here, it's just the level of truth, of genius, of beingness. There's conscious creation. Really life is an illusion, like I said, that people are just putting their own perceptions on what is just is, and judging it. And that we all have choice about what we do in our lives. This level is, if I had to give sort of like examples of people who resonate at this level, we really would, I want to say, first of all, that all of us at times resonate on this level. And examples are, when you dream of something, or where you have a coincidence that happens in your life, or where, somebody finishes their sentence, or you get something just at the very moment that you need it. There's something bigger than just us as individuals, that we're connected in a way that we just don't even really understand. Another example is, I've heard this from a number of artists. I actually saw an interview with John Cougar Mellencamp recently, and he was talking about one of his songs, and he said, I woke up and it came to me. He didn't even really take credit for having written it, because he felt like it was almost downloaded to him from a higher power. And I've heard other artists say that they just feel like they're sort of a vessel. So that's an example of level 7 energy. And the people that have resonated at this level, for more than a few seconds at a time, are people like, Buddha and Jesus and the Dalai Lama. These are people that are just really up there beyond what most of us can conceive on a regular basis. And there's not really anything, there's no disadvantages to this, but at this level, it's a little heady. There's really no right or wrong, good or bad. We're really connected to an intelligence of the highest power. We create the world that we choose. Time and energy are an illusion. The purpose of life is not to be known. Unconditional love is our true nature. There's no ego, no identity. We're completely connected to everything around us, and all is well. And I know for some people they'd say, okay, well, this is God. Others would just say, well, this is, it's a higher power, or I'm connected to the universe. That's kind of like where this level 7 is. So what I'm going to do now is go to, what does this all mean? I think that the reason why I went through this is that I want you to understand the different levels, and there's a framework here. And a lot of times we just sort of experience our emotions and don't feel like we have a lot of control over them. And in fact, we do. We've got choice. We've got choice about how we experience our life and the world. And I know I'm a coach, and so I hear it quite often like, well, I don't believe that because my boss did this, or my kids did that, or, something happens. And, we feel like that happened, or our experience of it was because of something that happened. And I want to this is sort of a psychological thing. I was an econ major, not psychology. So but our behavior starts with the trigger. So something does happen, and then this is the part that we often skip through, because we have thoughts and beliefs about what happened. And very often those thoughts and beliefs are in the subconscious, and they've we started being programmed as soon as we were born, and maybe even before that. And a lot of our programming, if you will, is unconscious. But when we have that thought, it can be just a super split second. It causes us to experience an emotion. And then based on that emotion, we will take action. And if we ever want to, change what happens in our lives, the only way to really do it permanently is to do it at the level of the thought. A lot of people will do things like, I'll just use an example of dieting. Like sometimes people will say, okay, I want to lose weight, and so I'm going to remove the triggers. I'm going to clean out my cabinets. I'm going to get rid of the Oreos. I'm going to get rid of the, chicken nuggets in the freezer, whatever. Get rid of the potato chips. But they don't change their thoughts. And so as soon as they're in a different situation where that trigger is there again, they just kind of go back to their old habits. And the way to permanently change your behavior is to actually examine the thoughts that you have and either remove or replace the thought with something that is more aligned with the action and outcome that you'd like to experience. So let's see the next slide. So there are 4 different types of negative thoughts that we all experience. And I want to go through these because I think understanding, the types of thoughts that we have and the type of programming that we have can help you to become more aware of it and to choose whether you want to, have those thoughts in your bag. I love this analogy. It was one that one of my my coaching trainers used, and it's, it goes back to what I was saying before about the programming that started, probably even in utero, but definitely when we were infants. That we learn about our world and we learn the rules of the world, and as we're learning that, we put these ideas and these beliefs into this bag that we carry around with us. And then when there is something that triggers that, if there's maybe some similarity, a tone of voice, something that we see, something that we smell, we go back and we find something that feels the same, and we almost automatically have that thought. And again, it can be so quickly that we don't even recognize that it's there. We're on to the response, onto the emotional response of it that leads us into the action. And I, as a coach, what I help people do is open up their bag and see, okay, what are these beliefs that I have? Do I still want to keep this belief? And I'm going to talk about here the different types of beliefs. So the first one is gremlin messages. Well, and by the way, you see that the acronym is GALES. It's just a good way to remember the different types of negative thought patterns. So gremlins are sort of like that little devil that's on your shoulder that's whispering kind of mean things in your ear. Gremlins don't really care if you're happy. They only want to keep you safe. And so they will use very extreme messaging to keep you safe. And sometimes it's pretty mean. It's like, nobody likes you, or you're not good at this. You're ugly, you're fat. It's those terrible voices that I think all of us have at one time or another. And the trick with the gremlin messages is to recognize, like some people will say, I just want to kill that gremlin. And, to do that would be actually, it's impossible, first of all. And also it would be getting rid of a part of yourself that is actually there for a good reason. It's trying to keep you safe. I suggest to my clients that you kind of co-opt or befriend your gremlin and give it a different job. Say, thank you very much. I know you're trying to keep me safe, but can you do it in a nicer way? Or can we just recognize that I am going to, go for this new job? So stop telling me that I'm not good enough to do that. The second type of negative thought pattern is assumptions. And we'll just kind of continuing the example of the new job. Sometimes maybe we've had an experience in the past. So for example, maybe you interviewed for a job and you didn't get it. And so you just assume that because you had that experience in the past and you had a particular outcome, that you're going to have the same outcome again. So you just assumed that what happened in the past is what's going to happen in the present or the future. So that has an impact on the type of behavior that you take. And when if you can recognize that, you can maybe step back and say, well, what's really different now than what happened, 10 years ago, the last time I interviewed for a job. And it kind of brings us to the present and brings us back to reality. The next type of negative thought pattern is interpretations. And an example here, an interpretation is that something happens and we believe we know why it happened. And we base our, behavior on why we think something happened. And we may be interpreting the situation accurately and we may not. And this can cause a lot of confusion when we interpret things in a way that isn't actually accurate. And an example is, say you're at work and one of your coworkers walks by and you say, oh, hey, Tom, how are you this morning? And Tom doesn't say anything. And so maybe we say to ourselves, like, well, Tom doesn't like me. And so just think about all of the things that happen after that, like, okay, I'm going to avoid Tom, or I'm going to be angry at Tom. I don't want to work with him on a project, whatever. And the reality, it could be that Tom doesn't like you, but it also could be that he had his earbuds in and he was on a conference call, or he has a head cold and he didn't hear you, or he got in a fight with his roommate that morning and he just was like kind of in a mood. It's helpful to be able to like pick your head up and like take the blinders off a bit to, really question whether your interpretation is accurate or not. And then finally, the last type of negative thought pattern is limiting beliefs. And limiting beliefs are usually ideas or thoughts that have been handed down to us by somebody in our life. So it could be that, my grandparents used to tell me when I got out of William and Mary, they said, oh, Terry, you should go out and get yourself a job with the government. That's a really stable job. Thankfully, I didn't believe that was the only way to get a stable job was to go work for the government. But if somebody did believe that, and then maybe that would be the only place that they would look. Or if somebody really wanted to be an executive, but maybe someone in their family or a mentor told them the only way to get an executive job is to get an MBA. And if they don't have it, and then they believe that they're not capable of doing that. And so, with all of these, I say, let's open up the bag, pull out some of these beliefs and question, like, where did I get this from? Is it serving me well? And do I want to keep it? Or do I want to get rid of it or replace it with a more positive belief? And when we're able to do that, what we're able to do is actually consciously move between those different energy levels. And, some of those lower energy levels, the levels 1 and 2, it takes a lot of energy to stay there. I mean, if you think about being mad at someone, how that feels. It's like it's a burden and it takes a lot of energy to hold that grudge. Okay, so let's see. If we replace or release that those negative beliefs, it frees up more energy. And when we free up more energy, we're able to focus that on things that that we want to do, where we actually get more energy back to us. Go up into those anabolic energy levels. So here's the takeaways from today's presentation. So catabolic, those levels 1 and 2, that kind of energy burns you out. Anabolic energy builds you up. There's 7 levels of energy, and you are actually able to consciously choose to move between them based on your thoughts and what you actually choose to believe and respond to. And the behavior pattern, your patterns result from the trigger, the thought, the emotion, and the action. And the place where you can experience lasting change is when you change your thoughts. And here we go. Change your thought to change your action. There's 4 different types of negative beliefs: gremlins, assumptions, interpretations, and limiting beliefs. And you can release or replace negative thoughts from your bag, and as a result, experience higher levels of energy. So there is an assessment that, if you're ever curious about knowing what your actual personal energy profile is, there is an assessment that I offer. And if you're interested in that, you can reach out to me. I do offer a special discount for William and Mary alums. It's 70 questions, takes about 20 minutes, and it helps you see the time that's spent between the different energy levels. And it can really help to uncover some of those unconscious blocks that you may have that prevent you from accessing your higher levels of energy more frequently. So at this point, I'd like to open up for questions.
First off, I want to thank Terry. Thank you so much for sharing this great program over the mindset of our 7 levels. I've been thinking throughout it about sort of where I sit right now, but some mornings I sit at different levels, and it got me thinking. So just as a reminder for those of you who missed the very beginning, there's a Q&A icon. If you roll over the window with the screen that says questions, and you see the Q&A box, just click that and you can type it in, and I'll moderate some of the questions here in the remaining minutes that we have. Looks like we have some good time here for some questions. So please take advantage of Terry's time here that she's given us, and think of some great questions to put into perspective what your, a situation at work or in your profession that might be causing you to be in a certain level and you want to get out of that, or thinking about it creatively in that. One question I have, you just touched on the assessments. We had this great webinar earlier in the week, leading off on the Clifton Strengths assessment. There's Myers-Briggs. There's all these great assessments out there. I'm a fan of many of them. What is sort of the differences between the ELI assessment and some of the others out there? I'd be curious to get your perspective.
I get that question a lot from prospective clients, and like Myers-Briggs and some of the other ones are more personality assessments, and typically you find that those assessments stay consistent over time. Like I took the Myers-Briggs when I was going through business school like 24 years ago, and I've taken a number of times and it's remained consistent over time. The ELI is actually an attitudinal assessment, and it's a snapshot of where people are at a particular time. And as I was describing it earlier, it helps to, I kind of say it's almost like a sonar reading of what's going on under the water, like a sort of under the consciousness level. And a lot of times people experience situations where they have blocks, and maybe they keep like running into the same invisible wall and they don't know why. That assessment helps to uncover some of the beliefs that cause people to be at a certain energy level. And what we typically find is that once they're coached and they replace those thoughts with something that's more positive, or get rid of some of the negative thoughts, that if they take the test again or the assessment again, that they'll score higher and they'll see that their energy levels, like on a regular basis, are resonating higher.
Great, thank you. Quick question about coaching. You mentioned that's your profession. Do you do that remotely, or do you do that only in the Chicago region? Do you enjoy having clients all over the country? And
I have clients.
What's the best way for someone to connect with you, contact you?
I do coach people all over the country, and for people in the Chicagoland area, I typically will meet with them in person at least once on the front end. But I have clients on the West Coast, East Coast. I even have somebody I'm talking to right now who's in London. And we will meet by phone or by video conference. I use Zoom, just like this, and it really depends on what the client prefers. Some people find the phone more convenient, and others like to be able to see each other face to face.
Great. And as a reminder, we have alumni all over the world doing coaching, and many of them have actually, like Terry today, have shared their expertise as a webinar. So I encourage you to check out the on-demand ones to see some of the different perspectives and philosophies that all these coaches are doing. All doing similar types of work, but in a different perspective. And as somebody that coaches some people, I think it's sort of like a teacher. You really want to resonate with that person as many professors maybe resonated with you back in the days at William Mary. And so I think it's really important to find the right fit as a coach, like you would if you were on an athletic team, and finding the right coach to inspire you to be the best athlete you can be. But this has been really a great conversation. One other question I have here is it possible to completely get rid of 1 and 2 levels? I mean, I think of days where they happen, and some of it's not in your control. And so, is there a way to completely get rid of it?
No, and you really wouldn't want to either. I mean, it's the problem is not with levels 1 and 2. I mean, for example, if you're driving and somebody stops short in front of you, you want to have access to that level 2, or if you get in a conflict and somebody is threatening you, you want to have access to fight or flight, right? You want to protect yourself. You want to fight back if you have to. It's just that sometimes people get in the habit of staying in that all the time. I mean, I actually coach a lot of people who are unhappy at their jobs, and they are just miserable because they've gotten into sort of a cycle of kind of going between levels 1 and 2. They're feeling like a victim, and then they get resentful, and then they feel like a victim. They feel helpless. And what I'm all about is reminding people of the choices that they have and helping them to overcome fear that they might have to actually use the choices that they have. And once people kind of step out of that and they realize, like, okay, I didn't die, I didn't get fired, they start to experience a fuller range of options in their lives, and they can start to move into that more anabolic type of energy where they're getting energy back instead of just being drained on a constant basis. So just to reiterate, it's not level 1 and 2. It's just if you spend a lot of time there.
Got it. We all touch it, but we don't want to stay in it forever.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly.
What books are you reading lately? What are you, this alumnus wants to know sort of what's your recommended list, especially related to this area. If they wanted to do some of the exploring on their own time, what would you recommend if there's a few books out there for all the William Mary alumni to read?
Yeah, it's funny. I wish I could, I don't know if I can turn this. I don't know if you see my bookshelf. I've got like over 100 books on leadership, and so it's hard. There's one that I love that I recommend for women, and it's one that I read about 15 years ago, and it's called Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. And it's just about the habits that, and it's great for men too, because there's a lot of things that we all do, like maybe we've been sort of socialized to respond in certain ways, but they're not always the best ways to respond in the office. Another great book, and this one was actually written by Bruce Schneider, who, as I said earlier, founded my coaching school, and it's called Energy Leadership. It's sort of a fable, but it kind of goes through how you can kind of move up the levels and change your mindset and really enjoy more success in your lives. But I'm trying to think if I've got any other ones that. There's so many great books.
Maybe if you think of others and you want to reach out to Terry and get some additional suggestions, I'm sure she would be happy to send you a few additional names.
Yeah, for sure.
So one question here is, are the energy levels progressive, or are they more like a toolbox where you can use different levels as needed?
I would say that they are a toolbox, because sometimes you may actually consciously want to go to, for example, to a level 2. If you're, you can use anger as a motivator. For example, or another example might be if somebody needs nurturing and caring. To consciously say, okay, I'm going to shift to more of a level 4 and somebody's hurting, I'm going to step in and care for them. Because sometimes, like, I'm actually more of a level 5 person. I'm very, very creative and very curious. And I think some of the mistakes I've made sometimes in my life is that I approach things from like an idea and an opportunity standpoint, and really people really needed me to come in and give them a hug. And so I needed to be, and I'm learning to be more, empathetic and not just be like, don't worry about it. It's a great opportunity. And they're like, yeah, I really need a hug.
I relate to that. I'm very much probably the 5, and I
Yeah.
know there's moments where I should have been just listening and just let that person that I'm speaking with vent a little, or just be emotional with them and be comforting versus just telling them, look at all the great things out there. So I think you're absolutely right that the sort of ways to see it as a toolbox approach. So this alumna is teaches in the college level, and was interested in sort of how you might suggest incorporating this energy leadership model for undergraduates learning about leadership, and what suggestions would work well in that age group or that level in their studies.
Well, first of all, if that person wants to reach out to me, I'd be happy to maybe do a webinar for the class. I'd be happy to do this one. But I also have a kind of a chart or handout that I'm happy to share with anybody who wants it. If you just want to email me, that it's a one-pager that goes through each one of these levels and describes them much like I did in this presentation, and also talks about the pros and cons of each one of the levels. So if you're interested in that, just email me and I'll be happy to send that to you.
Perfect. Well, I think unless there's any additional questions, I just want to say thank you again to Terry. Doesn't hurt to have a few minutes of extra time before the end of the week. I'll be on my way shortly to New York to have another breakfast event as part of the Professionals Week tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this week. It's been a fun week for the tribe and throughout the country and online. And we still have one more online event tomorrow at noon Eastern time. So if you are joining us in a remote way, and which you all are today, but if you haven't been able to make it to the in-person or have and want more networking, please do join us. It's going to be based around industry, so you'll be able to choose like STEM or arts and media or law, business, or finance, and recommend you participate. It's a great way to build your network, to help each other, to learn from each other, and support the professional successes of one another in our lifelong learning efforts. So Terry, thank you for all that you've done. She's hosted events in Chicago region, done breakfast events for us. She's now done this webinar, and she's even wearing she showed me the Cipher William Mary shirt there. So you are a true Tri-Pride graduate. We are fortunate to have you as an alumna, and thank you all for joining us. Continue to think about your levels and aim for 7. I guess we all aim for 7, and strive for balance in our life and happiness in our professions, in our lives. So thanks so much, Terry. Have a great rest of the afternoon, everyone.
Thanks.
And go Tribe.
Yeah, thanks. Bye, everybody.